Creation's Journey to Life, Day 23. Blow my mind, please. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that even the best technology available to humans cannot measure the structure or design of the mind. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that what we know about the mind is what we measure as effect, like experience, behavior, thought, electrical impulse, as what we can see and observe as the mind manifests through some machines that measure the patterns of frequency and energy. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that the mind of a child develops an energy called consciousness that gradually possesses and takes control of some functions of the body, as in speed, movement, limited visual feedback, and orientation, as the mind forced the body into submission for control. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that bodily functions that provide for the living being functions independently before the mind is trained into function. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that the personality now accepted as the human is always less than the mind at this stage. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that the mind is always less than the body that give life to the mind. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that the consciousness that develops through the mind is in fact programmed into the body through the mind partly, and then thus able to be directed, changed, refined, and perfected. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see the mind is like a box within which the personality develops, and the resultant consciousness is trapped as it is dependent on the box, and thus always follow the design rules of the mind. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that the design rules of the mind are not brought to awareness, causing the ability of mind control to keep the consciousness controlled as if it is a danger that must be managed and be imprisoned. To educate yourself, watch The Trap and The Century of the Self. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that there is more to life than the mind, as the mind is just a machine like a computer with limited functionality in its current design. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that nature functions in a similar way as the mind and is the externalization of structured design, just without the capacity to choose. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that choice without understanding the design of the mind is not a gift, but is a disaster. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that if nature in all facets is to achieve choice, the human race would no longer be dominant. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to not realize and see that all designs by consciousness, like religion, spirituality, government, psychology, medicine, education, family, and all system consciousness designs are less than the mind, the physical body, and nature in general, as consciousness only designs systems to try and ensure its survival. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to refuse to realize and see that where thoughts come from and how it is designed is not at all understood. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to have refused to realize and see that self-talk is in fact a separate consciousness entity that achieves independence through design and purpose, from which point it rules in situations that trigger it into being, and that it functions in the format of chatting back in a self-righteous way as if it knows better and is superior. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to refuse to see that thoughts in a box, like the mind, will make a lot of noise, but that it is worth nothing but noise. I forgive myself that I've accepted and allowed myself to refuse to realize and see that mind power, as it exists in the matrix, is just clever design to try and manipulate and benefit from the abusive, destructive money system while staying in self-justification, blind to what is caused in the image and likeness of consciousness. Next blog will continue to blow the mind. Please subscribe and follow this blog. I commit myself to train and educate humanity in the correct use of the mind to result in a world that is best for all life, always and in all ways. I commit myself to demonstrate how life and the mind must coexist as one and equal, that all is life. I commit myself to support every part of existence to individual, self-realized self-awareness within the directive principle that is best for all life, to end the abuse of power and the creation of fear for control in every way. I commit myself to establish all systems as support for all life in ways that result in the effect of life magnificent equal. I commit myself to show that choice is only valid when there will be no harm in any way, and that choice that causes harm is the result of fear always. I commit myself to assist each one willing to become equal as the box of the mind to be able to create self as life here without getting lost in the dimensions of energy that is the trap of the mind protection design. I commit myself to assist all parts of existence abused by human self-righteousness and greed to forgive as they come to their own in self-realization and self-awareness. I commit myself to, in every way necessary, explain why consciousness is the trap that show when a personality is completely lost in the mind as the noise of a tin that rattles, but it only has value for itself in total confined separation. I commit myself to show in every way necessary why mind power has never benefited life in any way, but only served self-interest and separation from life.